Hello, everybody. I'm just going to wait till my other
Hey.
channel, I've got myself up on YouTube.
Yeah.
You know what I'm trying to say.
Yeah.
Make sure that we're actually going ahead.
Yes.
There we go. I think it's live.
Hello.
Hello. We're going ahead. There we go. Now you get to hear me in the background. Hi, everyone. Hello. How is everyone today? We have Jessica here. Hi, Jessica.
Hey, Jessica.
Welcome. I guess we should sort of just have a brief little hello, how are we? Before we start talking about the book, just so I can let people arrive. I'm just going to go on Twitter and say we're live.
Okay.
But how are you guys going?
Good.
Yeah.
Good.
Excited for the weekends.
Yeah.
It's always
fun.
Yeah.
We're finally getting some rain here, so I am really happy about that. Like, my mood has just been so much better.
That's good.
Yeah.
I'm like slowly getting caught up on things. I have a lot of stuff to wrap and get ready to ship. So some of it's like Patreon stuff and some of it's just Christmas presents for people. So I just have a lot of that and like video editing and stuff that needs to happen. But getting there.
That's fair enough.
Yeah.
I sent off the package to my person for the
yay.
What am I trying to say? Words. What even a word?
Secret Santa.
Yes, Secret Santa
yes.
the other day.
Yay! Oh, I'm glad.
Yay.
Yeah, your person had reached out to me too because they were concerned about like, oh, everybody needs to know like the rules about what you can and can't ship internationally. I was like, well, I'm glad you looked it up because luckily you were the only person with an international partner, so that works.
Good.
The only thing that when I went to the post office, they questioned one thing. They were like, it came up with one kind of alert to what is this, but then she said it's not like it doesn't really fit once you go in to the section that doesn't really fit in. But yeah,
it sounds like there's more limited items sending to Australia.
Yeah, I think we have, particularly where I am in Tassie, we have quite stringent, like you have to dump your food when you come in to off a plane and stuff like that. So yeah. Anyway, hello.
Oh,
yes,
hi.
Hello, Jessica. Hello, cool
like
gamer.
Talking about Secret Santa stuff. I have mine packed. I haven't mailed it yet. But
That's okay. You're in the States.
Yeah.
I know yours was your date was the 5th, but I was like, I just want to get it because I'm coming all the way from Australia.
That's fair.
Right, international shipping.
And, particularly because we're like the state at the bottom of we're little
like the farthest away.
So it's like it takes even longer.
That's fair.
Hi Nora.
Hey Nora.
Hi Tracy. Hello. Welcome. So yes, we were just talking about Bethany's Patreon again. We're talking about she's organized a Secret Santa. So if you happen to be part of Bethany's Patreon, you probably know what I'm talking about. And if you don't, then you should become one because it's really fun. Anyway, while you're also there,
you free advertising. Advertise for me. Thanks.
While I'm talking about stuff, I'm just always like, you should join. You should. But yes, that's what we were just talking about. But we are here to discuss Winterkeep. So I guess we should do that. Yay! Cara has is that the second edition?
This is the only one I have in the new edition because I didn't own this one.
It's the paperback, but it looks the same in hardcover. I have that one as well. Yeah.
Okay. I will assume that because this is the newer one. I have the fancy one, which I now want to go and buy all the other ones in this beautiful cover, but they're Rowan's books, and I'm like, I can't just replace his books. I don't like your covers; they don't match. I'm going to take them away.
Well, or you could just have two.
That's true. That's true.
It's fine. I have to buy my husband reading copies of books because he like trashes them when he reads them. So
for shame.
I mean, it's because he like takes them to the park with the kids and just throws them in bags and stuff. And I'm like,
Yeah.
I'll just buy you your own copy in paperback.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You can't have the special one. Yeah, they're really pretty, and but I also like, I'm just not a person who tends to have more than one copy of a book.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm a bit like, that would be a bit of a, anyway, we'll see.
Yeah,
Maybe
there's
I'll
very few series that I do that with.
Do you want to know how many copies of The Name of the Wind I have?
Tell us.
How many do I have, actually? I've got, okay, let's see. I've got the first edition hardcover, the special anniversary edition US hardcover, the UK paperback, the US trade paperback, and the US mass market paperback.
Of The Name of the Wind.
Of The Name of the Wind. Yeah, it's one.
Patrick Rothfuss.
Yeah, it's one of my favorite books. So I think I have
Yeah.
five copies of
Do
that
you have
one.
as many copies of the first one?
Of the first, it is the first one.
Oh, sorry, that's the first one. The second one,
That's
I mean.
the first one.
Yeah.
No, I don't. The Wise Man's Fear, I think I have 2 copies.
Fair enough. I was just curious because I was like,
I do also have UK and US of
Nice.
Wise Man's Fear, so
I mean,
I'm just saying, like, it's okay to have.
Yeah.
Yeah, I know, but I don't know.
And especially like if it's a series and author you love, it's like extra support is not a bad thing, you know?
Exactly.
I say this as somebody who has, I think, maybe 3 different full sets of the Artemis Fowl series, which is like 8 books.
Wow. Yeah.
So yeah.
I mean, there are not that many books I do this with.
Yeah.
But some of my favorites, or like
Me
the
too.
Witchland series by Susan Dennard. I have all of the original US hardcovers. I have all the UK hardcovers. And then I have, because they changed the cover design in the US at one point. So I have the US paperbacks in the new design.
Yeah. I know. I've been thinking, I'm like, because I have mine in hardcover, which I don't prefer. So at some point when the whole series is out, I'm like, I might rebuy them in paperback.
Yeah. Also, the UK hardcovers are really pretty. Anyway, so I do this for like my favorites, but
yeah, that's fair enough. And there's a lot of people that do it. I don't know. I feel like, but there's only so much money you can spend on books, which is obviously not true anyway. But you know, I could buy books I haven't read, or I could buy anyway. But I do have like more than one copy of The Lord of the Rings. But that's mostly because Rowan and I both had a copy when we consolidated, and we didn't. Neither of us were getting rid of,
right.
But like everyone should do what they want to do. I'm just more like, is it okay to do? Like, if it was my books, I would just unhaul the ones that I don't like anymore. But because they're Rowan's.
I feel like I don't collect art. I collect books.
That's fair.
And they also have a higher resale value than something that's disposable. You know what I mean? So I figure.
Yeah, that makes sense. That totally makes sense.
Anyway.
I might have to duck out early. I'm expecting visitors.
Sorry, should we start talking about the book?
So what did we, first of all, I guess, what did we rate it? And how did we kind of feel about it compared to the others? Would be maybe a good place to start.
I can go first if you want. So I gave it 4.5 stars. I did really enjoy it. I think I don't like it quite as much as some of the original books, but also after rereading this one again, maybe that would change. But I still love the way she writes characters. I love the world building. I love like the themes and ideas of this book. I think what kind of stopped me from fully loving it were some of the plot things that happened. Like, I am often frustrated by plot points that separate the main characters for a big chunk of the book. So even though I understand why it happened in this one, I felt really impatient waiting for Bitterblue to get back with everybody else. And then also, even though I really liked Lovisa and I really felt for her, and I think her character development was fantastic, I didn't really care about any of the plot stuff happening at her school. So there were just some like plot things that kind of like this book felt longer to me than Bitterblue, even though it's not. It's like 100 pages shorter. But yeah, I did still really enjoy it. I think it is a really satisfying continuation to the series. I know a lot of people were nervous when this one was announced because it had been so long since she wrote in the series, but I feel like it did live up to the other books. Like I would rate it higher than Fire, not as high as Graceling and Bitterblue, but I do still really enjoy it.
I gave it 5 stars, and this is my favorite one so far.
Ooh.
So, yeah, I really liked it a lot. I was invested in all of the things that was happening that were happening. I know we'll get more into this, but I liked some of the themes of the book that
Mhm.
she was doing. I also really liked the choice to have Bitterblue and Lovisa as characters to catch both her original audience and current
Mhm.
teen audiences. I thought that was just like a really smart choice
Yeah.
where you were able to kind of explore the more mature side of things with Bitterblue's character, and then bring in like a younger side with Lovisa. And I just think some of the themes resonated with me. So I loved it. I had a really good time with it.
Tracy agreed with you. It was her favorite so far. I think I agree with you as well. I haven't actually run it through Corpile, which I use to rate, but I imagine I'm going to give it 5 stars. But yeah, I agree. This is my favorite so far, and I think it's the different perspectives. I'm starting to realize that that's, with exceptions, there are exceptions always to every rule, but that's probably my preferred, particularly for fantasy, of style of writing, is the different perspectives. I tend to prefer over the top of the one perspective. So I really enjoyed having, like you said, Bitterblue, and then having Lovisa, and then having the various different other perspectives. I really like the fox as well.
Yeah. Adventure is one of my favorites. I love him.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I just love how he was just so like, I'm bonded to her and I have to do all this stuff, but actually I want to look after everyone. And I just really like the way she wrote the fox. I thought it worked really well. I mean, I was going to say I haven't met any foxes. I don't actually I don't have a lot of experience with foxes, but from what I've seen of them on TV and whatever, I feel like it kind of suited what a fox.
Yeah.
Like a personality seemed to suit what I would imagine its personality would be if it had, if you had one, I guess.
And I love that they're introduced from Lovisa's perspective as this like really sinister thing. And the twist is actually like they're good guys. They just like don't know how to help yet. Yeah, I loved the foxes. I also really enjoyed all of the points of view we got. I also think it's hilarious that I was right about the Gideon thing. I was just one book off. I predicted it unintentionally.
Yeah, which I liked that.
I thought it was really well done. I'm clearly, if I thought it was going to happen in the other book.
Also, like, I know it was subtle, but like, did y'all notice Bitterblue is like canonically bisexual?
Yeah.
That was fun.
Yeah.
I was like, okay. Which, you know what? It's interesting. I don't know. It's interesting to me because the fact that this was written 10 years later, right? Because in the original books, you had queer side characters, or like possibly queer side characters, but it was like a different time. And it's interesting that now it's like, oh no, okay, main character is, I don't know. I just thought that was interesting.
Oh yeah. Was bi as well.
Is she?
It talks about her having
Oh yeah.
relationship or what, but having
Which character, Mel?
fire.
Yes.
Okay.
I think I do remember.
I mean, it
that.
wasn't on page, but it
Right.
mentioned
It wasn't as.
But it mentioned, yeah.
Yeah.
Women in the
Maybe
past,
it was like more subtle. But yeah, I just think it's interesting that we're like,
Yeah.
it's like, okay.
She's
Yeah.
being more like explicit about it in
Right.
this one.
Right.
Yeah.
And with like Ban and Raffin, it, like I said, it was kind of implied, but then
Right.
with Saf and Sky, it was just straight out like,
Yeah.
oh, you're
And
you're in a relationship. Oh,
Yeah.
Yeah. And I noticed that now in this book they're referring to Raffin and Ban, is that his name? They're like, oh, his consort. So now it is
Yeah.
explicit on page. Even like we
Yeah.
all thought like that was the
Like-
only thing
like
that made
clearly
sense.
that's what's going on, but then,
right.
yeah.
But now she's actually
Yeah.
confirming it. So yeah.
Yeah. I'm just going to go through a couple of the comments before we go off on a tangent and people feel like they didn't get heard.
Yeah.
Nora and Jessica rated it 5 stars as well.
Cool.
5 stars from Tracy, which is probably obvious because it was her favorite. My reread is a 4. It's difficult to read. The abuse.
Mhm.
Yeah, that's fair.
That's fair.
That was a big thing.
Yeah, that was a lot of it. I like the different perspectives. Yes, love for adventure.
Yeah.
Agree with that.
Yeah.
Definitely.
That part at the end where Bitter Blue is like telling him, it's like, you're not a bad fox. Like you did. You had to do horrible things. I was like, he's just he's like, I'm not brave and honest and true like you told me. And she's like, yes, you are.
You did a really hard, horrible thing because
Yeah.
there was no other way. Yeah, that was beautiful. Yes, agree. I like them together.
What a
Yes,
turnaround from book 1.
Right?
Right?
Yes.
I know.
I love it.
I have loved
yeah.
all of her love interests. I'm realizing.
Okay, right. Yeah. No,
Really well done. Yes, I agree. It was I love the way that all of the characters all of the characters' sexuality and what they were or were not doing was like it was just what you were doing.
Yep.
Yeah.
Fine.
Like it's a great example of like you can have fantasy where there's like plenty of other conflict. It doesn't have to have the same issues our world does. Like if you don't want it to, you know. So
absolutely. And I thought it was interesting that like the biggest conflict around that was with the guard, with Lavisa.
The class thing was a much bigger deal.
Yeah. And then also Lavisa's reaction when Nev was talking to her grandfather about stuff. And she was like, I don't want to hear about this. What?
Yeah.
I thought that was funny. And that felt really realistic as well. Like it wasn't that she was concerned about what Nev had been doing. It was just that she was like, how can you use your grandfather? Why?
Yeah.
To the comment about the abuse, like I know it was a lot, but I do really love what this book had to say about like the impact of growing up in an abusive family or having a narcissistic parent and like the sibling relationships in light of that and sort of the feeling of responsibility and guilt over escaping, because I think that is like a really real thing that people go through, and even in families I think where it's not abusive like this but just like unhealthy or like in other ways, like there is something to that of like the sense of guilt, like that you're abandoning your siblings, but for your own health you need to also like get out of that situation. So I just really liked how the book tackled that.
Absolutely.
I did too. I thought it was very nuanced and very thoughtful, and it makes sense that it's not like Lovisa gets away from her parents and she's still struggling with this. Like the part where like she's telling Nev, she's like, I never protected my brothers enough. And she's like, that was your parents' job. Like you were another child. Like that is not your job. And then when Lovisa is like still struggling with like coming to terms with the fact that her father was also abusive, just not as obvious about it as her mother was. And she says something like she's talking about how like he would just let their mother do whatever. And Nev is like, that's the point. Like I thought that was very well done.
Yeah.
Just got a tea delivery.
I like your touch now.
Yeah.
Yep. Yeah. No.
Okay, she's waiting.
No. Yeah, I agree. I thought it was also just excellently portrayed. And yeah, that's the thing, is that it is just as harmful for there to be a parent who doesn't do something to stop it, because that is their job. They're the adult, and part of their job is to protect the child. And oh man, I think I don't know. I don't know if y'all have seen this, but there's been some interesting conversations on TikTok, probably other places as well, where there is this point of view some people have expressed that like a marriage relationship should always take precedence over children no matter what. Which is
What?
Because like and like on the one hand, like I to like a low extent, I get where people might be coming from in terms of that, like it is important to prioritize your marriage even when you have children. But that doesn't mean that like at the expense of you know what I mean? So but it was interesting because this felt in line with like some of those conversations.
I can see how I do not have kids and I am not married, so I know nothing about this, but I'm going to give an opinion anyway. I can see how it would be something where it can be more difficult to be a good parent if you are also struggling with your marriage, you know, with that relationship. But yeah, the idea of prioritizing it explicitly, like above your children, is odd to me.
Well, there's to a weird extent, I don't know, like I think conversations on TikTok are weird sometimes. Like there's like arguments over like like this is dumb, but like there was like a whole thing about like if you're serving dinner, should you give the first plate to the kids or to your spouse? And I'm like, the kids, so they're not screaming at you. Anyway,
easy decision, yeah.
Right, but there were people who like had very strong feelings about like, and so there's like some interesting thinking out there about some of the stuff, and it just reminded me a little bit of like, you know, it felt like the dad was prioritizing the external appearance of the family and the relationship with the spouse over the well-being of the kids, you know.
Yeah, and I thought it was really well done how it wasn't used as a twist really in the way that it like cheapened it, but it was a surprise that worked for the story, at least for me, when I mean, her mother was also horrible and I am not discounting that, but in terms of the things they did during the book, her father seems to be like, he actually was out here murdering people,
right?
And I thought that was really interesting because even as like the reader, I was kind of thinking of him as like the nicer one, you know, the better one. And Lovisa has always thought of him as like the protector, you know, like he would take as much of their mother's anger as he could, which we see by the end that was not true. And so I like that, I don't know, there are ways to do a twist like that I think can be very like insulting, you know. And this didn't feel like that to me because it made sense with the story and it made sense why we would have this view since it was filtered through Lovisa. And I think it like strengthened the themes of the book about abuse and about like there being a lot of different ways to hurt somebody.
Absolutely.
And I like that. I think it was her uncle Katu said to her, like, if you want, I can tell you more about her childhood, you know, about like why she may have had some of these horrible ideas. And Lovisa's like, no, that's okay. She's like, if I have children, I want them to blame me and not my parents. So
Yeah.
yeah.
I think that I found it was really interesting, really nuanced way, like you said, of talking about abuse and about the different ways that it plays out in a family, and like the not just the different levels of abuse and the different things that can be abusive, but like when I was reading about Benny and Lovisa's kind of realization that maybe he actually wasn't what she thought and didn't do what she thought, and I was thinking about so many situations of domestic abuse and where the partner is the one that's being abused as well as the children, and sometimes is the one being abused and not the children. And like you hear lots of people say, like, why don't they just leave, and why don't they just do this, and as if you wouldn't leave because you're kids, and obviously it's a lot more complicated than that. But I thought it was really interesting here where it was one step further. It wasn't even, these are all the reasons why you are failing your children, even though it's not necessarily your fault, or you are equally as abused. It was like, no, hang on, these are all the reasons why you are implicit. Maybe you're not actively abusing, but you're implicit in the abuse, which I feel like is very different from, here's all the reasons why you need to do something, rather than what you are doing, which is nothing,
Right.
but it's understandable why you aren't, if that makes sense. Does that make sense? I don't know if I'm
Yeah, I think so.
yeah, I thought that was really,
yeah. Sorry, I didn't mean to cut you off, Mel.
no, you're right. I thought it was a really nuanced way of looking at relationships and the different ways that power structures can be, and the manipulation, and like you said, that narcissism,
Right.
where the father obviously was like, he was just as manipulative and just as like, when Lavisa at the end was talking to Nev, and Nev was like, well, did it help? Was your mother not angry with you anymore? And she's like, no. She'd always come for me afterwards. I'd always end up in the attic, and your dad just sat there and let it happen. Yeah. Oh. It's like, the way that you can like abuse someone by setting up this notion that you are the good guy, like that can be an abuse in and of itself, was really new, I thought, as well.
And like you were saying, Mel, even though this is clearly a very toxic marriage situation in some ways as well, that doesn't mean that they don't have like responsibilities to like take care of their kids. Because it wasn't really a situation where it's like, one person is abusing their spouse and their children. It was like, I think you said it really well, so I should just stop explaining it. But I agree with that. And I was really scared when Lavisa found Bitter Blue, because I was thinking the whole time, I'm like, okay, the only thing that makes sense is if Bitter Blue was being kept in this room. But when Lavisa found her, this was at the point where we still thought Furla was kind of the mastermind. I was like, are they going to murder her? Like, I was honestly so scared, like, about what would happen to her, because like, it just, I mean, the way that we kind of learn more about what her home life was like throughout the book, because at the beginning they're talking about how like Lavisa and her brothers, they would be like, sent to the attic or whatever. And like the first time they bring it up, it kind of just sounds like, oh, they were sent to their room, which like I was sent to my room as a kid, and then you hear more about it and it's like, oh wait, no, this is not like a normal discipline thing. Like, I was very scared for Lavisa when she found that out.
Yeah, I was as well, and I was scared for Bitter Blue as well.
Yes.
Where she was going to wind up, and what was going to happen to everyone, really.
One thing that I think is interesting about it too, though, is that like it shows how abuse can exist even within elite families. Right? Because they're like political elite, they're wealthy, and yet this is what the kids are dealing with, and from the outside nobody would probably expect it.
There's definitely an expectation that it's the lower socioeconomic families that that have the abuse. And
Yeah.
I mean, I guess like from a social welfare point of view, people who are, when it's brought to the attention of governments or, you know, welfare agencies or whatever, it often is lower socioeconomic because they're not in a position to necessarily be able to
Hide it or
hide
pay
it.
it.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, when we get that, like, I think one of the things that made it very effective and also like a very specific kind of heartbreaking is like Lavisa is so matter of fact about it for such a long time. Like when she's thinking about how she's trained herself to always have food in her pockets because she like never knew when she was going to be locked up and like not given anything for like days. And it's like, yeah, it was really heartbreaking. And even when she stays with Nev and her family, it's like she's so like she's like so jealous, you know, and she's so like upset and angry because she's like, I guess everybody just gets to have, you know, like parents who care about them. And yeah, it's just like I think it did a really good job, like you guys were saying about like, yeah, she doesn't have to worry about some of the things that other people do, but that doesn't mean that her home life is good. And even in cases like, okay, she doesn't have to worry about food. It's like, well, yeah, she does actually, because her parents don't feed her sometimes. So
Right.
Yeah, that as a child and even as a young adult, like you are so dependent on your parents that like they could have all the money and in theory like you would never want for anything, but if they're controlling you in that way, then yeah. I was also shocked. She set it up really, really well, I thought. For it to be Furla and for us to believe that for ages. Yeah, and I was really surprised when it turned out it was Benny. And I thought that was really well done when you realized it was Benny and you started to realize some of the things like we were saying that he was doing to manipulate the situation that made him equally abusive, just in different ways. I sort of started to unravel his personality, his persona, which I thought was really well
then
done.
toward the end, you also even get a little bit of, you know, the way that even if somebody is caught, how testifying against them can be traumatic. So there's a lot in this, but not, I mean, that's not even like touching on stuff about like warfare and environmentalism, which is also a big, like there's a lot in this book.
Yeah.
I feel like all 4 of the books that we've read now, and I'm assuming Seasparo will as well, have had so many different layers of really interesting and really important conversations that are just done so well. Like I'm absolutely amazed at how she can manage to fit. I mean, you said this is shorter than Bitter Blue. It's still a fairly long book, but it's not actually, considering everything that's in there, it's not actually that long. I mean, if Sanderson was trying to include all this stuff, we all know he'd be 1,000+ pages. Like, yeah, it's pretty amazing what she's managed to get in and how nuanced it is.
Yeah, it's like it's so impressive to me that she has so many big ideas in this book. Like she talks about abuse, she talks about the environment, she talks about politics and like using power and all of this. And all of these are like really big topics that you could probably just spend a whole book on, but she does them all in the same book and it still feels like everything gets the time that it needs. Yeah, I was really impressed with that.
Yeah. Same.
Yeah, definitely. I slight spoiler for January, but I read the Daughter of the Moon Goddess in November, and I did enjoy it, but I felt like that was one where there was a lot of stuff in there that was touched on that wasn't necessarily as explored as well. Whereas, like, yeah, you said she touches on a lot of things, but you never feel like it's not given the grace that it needs to be given. Like it's given exactly the right amount of attention for what the story is doing without being just you know, just fleeting or like being a really shallow exploration. I thought anyway.
Yeah.
And I think she did that with characters as well. Like I think obviously all of our point of view characters were really well written. But even like the supporting characters, like for a while, I felt like I wasn't understanding Nev as much just because it felt like she was a really important part of the story and we didn't really know why. But by the end, I really liked her. I love how much we got about Hava. I was like so scared when she fell. Like the only reason I was like, okay, maybe she'll be okay is because I thought I remembered that she was in the synopsis of the fifth book.
Yeah, right.
But like I love that even though Hava is not a point of view character, we still got to see a lot of her.
Yeah.
I love adventure, like we were talking about, these like foxes. Yeah, I think
Even
like
the
the
silver
characters were done
cows.
really well.
Yeah.
What's that?
There's
Sal?
Even the silver cows and the keeper.
Yes, I
Like,
love
yeah.
the keeper who's not a keeper. Yeah,
yeah.
Yeah.
yeah,
I loved that whole like, yeah, that's another thing that's touched on very briefly, but it's still, the implication is, you know, talking about like even going to the extent of talking about mythology and legends and how we invent our own stories and how we,
and how like having a story isn't enough if you don't do anything to make it true. Like, yeah, I liked that because like they do have a kind of keeper, but that doesn't mean that nobody else has a responsibility to do anything. Like, in fact, the only reason that she kind of became a keeper is because other people and other beings were involved.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Yeah. I think there's just like so much. There's so much nuance too to also, you know, these questions of like warfare and weapons development, but like the interaction of that with the environment and like how interconnected those things are and how you have to actually think through it. And like, I don't know, I just like there's just a lot. And the world building has these moments of just real depth where she's thinking through it. Even things like you know, like they have this tea they drink to not get pregnant, but like the moment where she runs out and it's Nev, right, is like, oh, you don't like you don't need as much. They just want to make you buy more. Like you actually don't need that. Like like things like that, you know, it's like these little like details. I don't know. It's
fun. Yeah, I thought that was really well done. And then when Levisa's talking about when she's kind of trying to figure out what her next step will be and whether she'll go into government herself and everything, and she's talking about how they're not really pro-environment or pro-business, they're pro themselves. And like, you know, talking about the monopoly of the family that run the airships and you know, and I just thought that was, it was so simple, like it was just elegant. I don't know if that's the right, it's just so nuanced, but it wasn't like a big, she didn't have to go into a massive amount of detail about it. She didn't have to explain absolutely all the different families and how they fitted together. She was able to give a really good overview and a really nuanced conversation without having to, which I just thought was.
And I love that moment, like related to that, where Lovisa realizes like, oh, the reason my parents don't ever fight about politics is because they don't actually have any political differences. It's just they disagree about how they want to get their money and how they want to get their way. And and then the fact that like Lovisa spends like the entire last chunk of the book being like, I don't want to go into politics because I actually have ideals and ethics and I want to care about people. And they're like, maybe you should then. She's like, fine, I'll fix it myself, I guess.
It would be really interesting. I'm really excited for Sea Sparrow. It'd be really interesting to see first of all, who's in it and like kind of where she takes it. But I'd be interested to see, does she follow Lovisa at all? Will Lovisa be in government? Will she be managing to have some ideals still? Or I think that'd be really interesting.
I'm even so interested by the fact that it's called Sea Sparrow because like that's the name of the ship that already sank. So like, are we gonna find out more about that? I guess.
Wasn't that the seashell?
I thought it was like, oh, maybe that was maybe it was something else.
The one that the keeper was keeping with the
I thought
Monsians.
I thought that Sea Sparrow.
Maybe it was
a character mentioned early on. Maybe I'm wrong.
Maybe I'm misremembering. I think I am misremembering then.
Don't know. It definitely had C in it. It
See
can't-
something. That's what matters.
Yeah.
I love
I'm
the little
curious.
piglet too.
I know.
His name is
I
Worthy.
love that she named it after the queen, but like
Yeah.
secretly. So
Oh, this is interesting. It looks like Sea Sparrow is all from Hava's perspective.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Interesting.
Huh.
Hmm.
And it takes place right after Winterkeep.
Oh, okay. Because obviously the others have been like even Katza and even the Graceling and Bitterblue didn't follow immediately on each other.
Interesting.
Yeah.
So I just wanted to say hi to Liz. Just quiet listening here. I haven't read the book, but my
Hello.
plans were through tonight, so I thought I'd jump in. Thank you for jumping in. Hello, hello. Welcome. Liz with Phil, it was obvious that she was abusive. Then it was much more subtle. Yep.
Yeah.
Definitely. Okay. I didn't, just because I felt like they'd have a bigger part in the story if they would have, that would have happened, if that makes sense.
I just wouldn't put anything past her parents, so I was like concerned for everyone.
Yeah.
I feel like certainly one of the brothers could have been killed if they'd been the one to open the door.
Oh, you know what we also didn't talk about, which I thought was interesting, is that like I think her dad was a narcissist and her mom was just perpetuating the cycle of abuse she grew up with.
Yeah.
And so I just think that's interesting too, that it's like, yeah, that there has to be like an intentional sort of breaking of that cycle when you hear about what happened with her and her brother. Anyway.
Yeah.
There's a lot. This book was like
so much. Like,
just,
yeah.
Yeah.
And I thought it was really interesting as well how like we didn't see that much of Katu, but what we did see of him, he seemed to be very different from Furla, and he didn't seem like he was perpetuating the abuse. So it's like, you know, that yes, so often that happens, that people do perpetuate circumstances they grew up with, but that it is possible to break the cycle. But then again, he doesn't have children, so it's hard to know what would he do.
Yeah. I do like that Lovisa is like already making a conscious decision, like I am not going to be my parents, because I know that that is something that some people do. I was shocked Katu wasn't dead. Like from the beginning, I was like, he just got murdered. So what a pleasant surprise that he wasn't.
Right. And I thought it was really cute the way when Bitterblue and Gideon at some point after everything had happened, and Bitterblue, I can't remember what they were talking about, but Gideon's like, can I get extra points for rescuing your ex-boyfriend?
Yeah.
I thought that was a really cute little exchange. Like, of course he was going to do that, and he doesn't need extra points. But since Bitterblue's offering to, you know, help him out,
he's like, if you're asking, I do think I should get extra credit. I'm like,
I think you should acknowledge that I did that thing.
That seems.
I liked their little romance.
I did too. I love how this book, like, Gideon was just like discovering all his feelings. He's like, I guess I'm just a person who cries now. And I'm like, I love you. I love men who process their emotions in a healthy way.
Yeah. It's good.
I was certain. Yep. I was pretty sure of that too.
Yeah.
That's true. They wouldn't kill the kids because it wouldn't look right. That is true. Because they went out of their way to send Lovisa out of the room. So yeah, you're right. They would have. It wouldn't have looked right to the narcissist. I thought that too. I thought it was going to be a massive conspiracy. I thought that was really interesting as well. The way that, like, when Bitterblue came, when Gideon and Harbour were talking about the way that people were cheating Bitterblue out of the Zilphium, and everyone was like, "Yeah, duh." Like, it was just not none of them
Yeah.
seemed to think that was an issue. They were like,
No.
well, she
Yeah.
didn't know what she had. Well, why
Yeah.
wouldn't we?
Yeah.
They were like, well,
They're like, that's
obviously.
just how that goes.
Yeah,
You'll eventually figure it out, and then
what's your
we'll lose our advantage. Like, yeah.
The ship was named Seashell.
Okay.
Thank you, Jessica. Yes, I also loved The Keeper. I thought that was really well done.
I think I should have felt more bad for Katu, Jessica, but I think that we didn't see him enough, and I like getting more. So when Lovis is like, they're in love now, I'm like, it's true, they are. Sorry.
Yeah.
You're going to find out
You were gone
eventually.
for a long time. Sorry.
Well, also, like, they had been with other people, so I mean, it wasn't
like it was.
Yeah.
It felt like a much more casual thing
Yeah.
than Bitter Blue and Gitten, but
Yeah.
I feel like they were more friends at that point than anything else.
And
So,
I think Katu just didn't know that because like he obviously hadn't been around.
right.
Yeah. And Lovisa
I
didn't know.
mean, it
that
is
he
pretty
was
rough that it's like you get rescued from this like a horrible starvation prison, and like you're like you think that you're still together with someone, and it's like, oh no, they're like about to get married. Like, sorry.
to the person that happened to rescue you.
Yeah.
You know.
Can't
And
be too
Lovisa
mad.
didn't know that like that was a thing she should be careful about.
Right.
So I thought it like made sense that she would just blurt it out like that.
He was sad, Jessica, but he'll be fine. He'll
be
get over it. He'll find other people. It'll be fine.
I mean, he's got a lot to get over. Like, I feel like the thing with Bitter Blue is probably the least of the things he has to get over.
I know, like, not that it doesn't make sense why he would be upset, but I was surprised that he was, like, because I thought that, like, him and Bitter Blue were, like, exes for a while, so.
Yeah. Maybe he spent the whole time, like, with this
Yeah.
fantasy about when he finally...
But, like, one day.
Yeah. And then,
put a ring on it.
You snooze, you lose. Like,
yeah. How it goes.
You get captured,
I love
you
the
lose.
part. What's that, Mel?
You get captured, you know.
Yeah.
Snooze,
Like, well, maybe you shouldn't have gotten kidnapped, Katu. Sorry. Like,
if you wanted to be with Bitter Blue.
Yeah. I love the part where Bitter Blue, like, calls in her advisor, and she's like, Gitten and I are getting married. You don't get a vote. Go tell everyone else. Okay, bye. Like, I was like, good for you. I really like,
absolutely.
I think she didn't articulate this directly, but I definitely got the feeling that, I mean, we know that she is a lot more confident after the events of Bitter Blue. But even aside from that, it's like, she's been through so much. She's like, I am not gonna like beat around the bush.
I'm doing what I want to do.
Yeah.
I'm gonna be happy, and you guys are gonna be okay with it. Okay.
Okay. End of conversation.
I've sacrificed enough for this country.
She really has. Like, let her have one nice thing.
Yes.
I think that was about the, well, you know, if you snooze, you lose. You can't get captured, you lose. So was there any standout moments for you that were just, standout moments for you guys in the book? Which one do I pick?
Yeah.
I feel like we talked about a lot of them.
We've talked about a lot of them, yeah.
I do really like that part. I don't remember who Lovisa was talking to, if it was maybe Adventure or maybe Bitter Blue. I don't remember, but like Lovisa's still thinking of herself as a horrible person. Like, she's not used to thinking that she's somebody who can even do nice things, much less like actually be decent. And like the person she's talking to is like just listing all of the people that she saved. She's like, you saved like Bitter Blue's life. Like, you rescued your brothers. You stopped them from doing it. And I was like, yeah, she did. Cause like, I hadn't thought about like, she's obviously a main character, but like, I hadn't necessarily put everything together about like how much good Lovisa has already done that she hasn't given herself credit for. So that moment was like really, really beautiful. Like, getting to see Lovisa, like, I don't know, start to love and accept herself was wonderful.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Well, and I think also just like seeing Bitter Blue several years down the road, more mature, having been able to have more life experiences too, I think is cool. I don't know. I just really enjoyed this. I think oh shoot, what was it? I lost my train of thought. I had oh no, it'll come back to me. There was something I was gonna say and it's like
That's okay. You'll get there. You'll
yeah.
remember it. Yeah, I think we mostly talked about all of my standout moments as well. I also really liked, just going back to like the abuse and like the way that people were kind of figuring out what happened and how they had actually been, Lavisa realizing like, no, this was your father's job. It's not your job.
No.
I feel like that happened with Adventure as well, like with Bitter Blue saying, that you did a horrible thing, but you did it for a good reason, kind of thing. And him him always feeling like he had to. I mean, first of all, he had to do what Furla told him to do because he was bonded to her, but he had to like be so sneaky around, and he was constantly like up against, well, I'm disobeying Fox, the mandates. I'm like disobeying my human, and what kind of like person does that make me? And like I made a bad choice to begin with to help Lavisa, but what, she hates me, and like just all the things that he was going through. And I feel like that was a reflection of Lavisa as well, of the way she was figuring stuff out, was with the Fox as well.
I think we've talked about that with the other books in the series. Like I know we talked about this with Fire, because one of the big things she did was kill her own father, and that is something that obviously really messed her up. But like, she's like, I hate that I had to do it, but I knew I had to do it. And I really like that in this series, Kristen Cashore is showing that like sometimes all of your choices are bad.
Yeah.
But that doesn't make you a bad person, Like I feel like sometimes in books it's like either one or the other. It's like somebody does something bad for the greater good, and like you're either supposed to feel this was completely justified, don't feel bad, it wasn't wrong, or you're supposed to feel like you should have found another way. How could you sink to their level? And I really like that she shows both. It's like something can be at the same time wrong, like ethically wrong, but also what you had to do. And I just really appreciate that. Like the specific way that she has both of those things true at the same time is something that I really like.
And I also think it's really interesting the way that she also parallels the like difference between like, you don't have to be, you're not a bad person just because maybe you do ethically wrong things, versus the people that are bad people, like Furla and Benny were making choices to do wrong things.
Right.
For selfish reasons.
For selfish reasons.
Yeah. And like they clearly had a choice to do a different thing. Like they didn't have to treat their children that way.
Yeah.
But whereas like the Fox really was in that situation where he was kind of between a rock and hard place, like he made maybe not necessarily a great choice, but was there any better choice in that moment?
Yeah.
Right.
I thought that was really interesting.
I guess one thing, to take this in another tangent, is that I thought was like maybe slightly cheesy, I guess, is that the fantastical weapon was sort of like magical grenades.
Yeah.
I was like, okay. I don't know. It was just
little on the nose.
On the nose. Yes. Like the pin removal. I was like,
the pin thing. Yeah. Yeah. No, I had like the same kind of like, this is like not even fantasy bombs. This is like just a bomb. Like,
this is just a grenade. It's basically,
yeah. I agree. It's like I liked all the discussion around that, but
but like the actual mechanism, I was like,
this is the same. Yeah. Well, and even like some of the ways they were talking about it, like Hava says like you can't uninvent something, and it's like it's very true, and I thought that was a good moment in the book, but I was like, this is like literally the atom bomb, which I guess, I mean, maybe she didn't want to like obscure her like that part of her message.
Yeah.
But it was it was still kind of literal.
And like, to be fair, the point is also accurate that like even if you disarm from nuclear weapons, they're still negatively harming the environment, you know, like even if you bury them or whatever, you know, like, so yeah, I mean, clearly like she's saying something about like nuclear power, but
I love when Hava's like, oh, the notebooks just burst into flames, all except these 2 pages.
I don't know how that happened.
And it's like we didn't find that out until later. So when she's saying that, I believed her. I was like, was there some kind of self-destruct?
Did you really? Oh, I didn't. I was like, oh yeah, they burst into flames.
Just for a second, and then when they're like, there's only 2 pages that made it, and I'm like, what?
Wait a minute.
Yeah, from the very first moment, I was like,
I think, we should just be suspicious of Hava at all times.
Absolutely.
Yeah,
I thought that was interesting as well. Yeah.
I loved, though, what Lovisa said to her brother. She's like, what is a whore? And what's a slut? I think slut is, and she was like, it doesn't actually exist. It's just something people say. Like I just love like her response. Like her mom was pissed about it, but I thought that was great.
Yeah, I agree. I thought that was a great response.
And I like that by the end of the book, it seems like, at least like from the trajectory that Lovisa is on, it seems like she's gonna start believing she deserves healthier relationships, you know? Like, I mean, I thought her and Nev were going to be a thing.
Yes,
and I feel like there's some hint at the end that maybe I was like, they'd be so wholesome.
I mean, I think that seemed to be the direction it was taking. Yeah, which I like.
That's what I thought, at least.
Yeah, same. I think too. Yeah. I like that for her.
Does anyone have any thoughts about the next book? Things I'd like to see, or things I think it's gonna do?
Well, reading the description, I suspect it's gonna focus more on this like war thing. That's my suspicion, because I think like we're continuing to play out questions about like the existence of this weapon. So my guess is it's going to be like partly about that, and maybe partly about Hava dealing with her trust issues.
Yes.
That's my guess about what the book's going to be.
My predictions are more about like how I'm gonna feel about it. I think I'm gonna love Hava because I have loved literally every protagonist in this series. I'm a little wary about like the setup for this one because I don't love like stranded on a desert island stories, so I'm a little bit like there's gonna be a lot of walking, a lot of journeying, but I do really love these characters, so I probably will still have a pretty good time with it. I agree. I think we're gonna see Hava learn to heal and love herself, which what a great time. So
I like this comment. The only thing I have a Winterkeep candle from Frostbeard Studios, and it's divine.
Sounds lovely.
Do they still have it? I might have to look that up. Do they still have that one?
That's what I'm wondering.
Sounds lovely. Thank you for your contribution.
Yes, this is an important contribution.
Absolutely.
Very useful. Oh, book lover candles. Ooh, how fun.
There's so many bookish, like, candle shops and, like,
I love bookish candles,
I know. I have a lot of them already. I don't need to buy any more, but
I mean, fun. I wasn't talking about need. I was just I mean, if that's our standard.
If that's a standard, then do we need any of these? Do we even need this book?
Right. What is it called? Tell us what the title is. Or was it specific to, is it just called Winterkeep?
I wonder if it was limited edition.
It might have been. I don't see it. No.
You said they do have them. Seems to be just Winterkeep.
You see it?
It is called Winterkeep, apparently.
Run.
Oh,
Maybe.
that's not going to take me
Oh,
there.
okay. It's 2 words. I was searching with 1 word.
Oh.
They haven't notified me when available, so
Okay.
it looks like they're not discontinuing it yet.
I don't tend to
Evergreen Forest and Bonfire. That sounds delightful.
It sure does.
Okay. Sure.
Oh, good. And there's soy wax, too. Well, thank you for that, Liz.
Yeah.
It's like we all signed up. Like, notify us when it's back in stock, please.
Suddenly all of these. Okay. We don't tend to do candles in this house because we have a peanut who will stick her whiskers into the candle and burn them off.
Yeah.
Not ideal.
Right. Yeah, that would be a problem.
Well, and I'm trying not to do them super too often right now, just because I don't want my cats to get I don't know, breathing in that much smoke and everything.
Yeah.
I do have an air purifier now, but it just seems like a good idea.
I don't do them that much, but sometimes it's nice to have some.
It's self-care.
Yeah.
Yeah, definitely.
And
that's
wax
okay.
melts are great too.
It is currently out of stock. Minty.
Minty. Sounds lovely.
Okay.
Although the cats don't tend to join me in the bath, so maybe I should just start having candles in the bath.
Yeah.
I said that, and that occasionally they do. Occasionally they're like, "What are you doing there?" And I'm like, don't, this is not going to be fun for anyone. Don't try and join.
Well, another really nice alternative is wax melts. If you get a wax melter, because that has obviously no open flame.
Right.
And you don't have to worry about the smoke inhalation thing either. See, this was not off topic though, because it is themed around the book we're discussing.
The book. Yeah.
So
that's great.
We don't mind. We always go off topic.
Also, we were at an hour anyway, so
yeah.
you know, it's not
let's wrap it up with a candle. I love it.
Exactly. We were pretty much at the end, I think. I think we'd come to a natural conclusion anyway. So let's talk about candles. Why not? Oh, there we go. I don't know what I did to the screen.
I'm so
I do have,
I'm glad, Mel, that you roped me into this, because I because I it had always been on oh, I should try it, but I just didn't anticipate it being such a great series.
Yeah. Yep.
Yeah.
My expectations were much lower than what
yeah.
Being, so.
Well, even though I'd read the first 3, I remember enjoying them, but just not absolutely loving them. I didn't see as much nuance in them the first time around. I don't know if maybe it's to do with the discussion, just being able to talk about it makes you kind of think, oh yeah, I don't know.
Well, and even I read them a few years ago at this point, and I did love them the first time, but I still think there are things that just being older and knowing more, experiencing more, when we were discussing Fire and the way that deals with rape culture and all of that, I was I think this is something that I notice more and that I appreciate more in a book now. I think I saw it at the time, but I see it more now. There are things about it that have somehow aged even better, which is unfortunate, but really, really great series. So I'm glad that you did this too, Mel, because I had not continued the series. I didn't know if I was going to, or I didn't have immediate plans to. So I've been loving it.
They're just really good. Well, and I think it's nice to find a series that holds up so well.
Yes.
The time, because that doesn't always happen. And also I just think because there's so many layers to what she's doing, you can reread them, and you can read them as an adult. So yeah, I think they're great books.
Absolutely. We are happy to read them with you too. Thank you for joining us. So we are taking a break in December, and we are reading Sea Sparrow in January, and now I am going to see if I can remember any more information about that.
I think I have it on my calendar. Let me see. Live show is Friday, February 3rd, or like the 4th for Australia.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah.
So that will be, I mean, obviously read Sea Sparrow in December if you want to, but we'll be talking about it on February 3rd, did you say? Yes.
Yes.
So it'll be the same time for people in the States as it has been the whole time. It's only going to change for people in Australia. So Tracy, for you and I, it is, I think, still going to be, it might still be 1 because I think we're still in daylight saving at that point. I do have the information somewhere. Yes, 1 p.m. So it won't actually change for anyone.
Okay.
So yeah, I feel like that's a natural place to sign off. So if everyone's happy to call it a day on today's conversation,
Yeah.
and go and check out what was it called again? Frostbeard.
Mm-hmm.
At all their candles.
Yeah.
They look awesome, and they do have Winterkeep in the wax melts as well. So yeah. But yeah, thank you all so much for joining me. Thank you to my amazing hosts as usual. And please subscribe if you haven't already to me and to Cara and to Bethany. Join Bethany's Patreon. Do all that stuff. We'll see you. Have a great Christmas. Happy New Year. And we'll see you all next time.
Happy holidays.
Yay.